Influence from mere association tendency. This is one of my favorites. Influence from mere association tendency is an absolute like weapon, basically. The best way to explain it is with an example. Like, why do you think Nike uses athletes to sell their clothes? Or why do you think Coca-Cola uses athletes to sell Coke, right? It's like, it's association. It's kind of like the whole idea of celebrity endorsement is association, by like influence through mere association. So, oh, Mo Farah wears Nike, so I should also wear Nike. Like, basically, human beings are very like, we're pack animals by nature. We're very driven by monkey see, monkey do behavior. If we see someone that we regard as high status, high authority, high competence, should look up to, values align with ours, and they do something, then you'll also probably be more likely to do that thing. So like, if you trust me and you like me and I tell you to suddenly start doing something, then you're probably going to do it. It's like with people who are like extreme Joe Rogan fans and they start eating elk meat, right? It's like they're doing that because they've been influenced by, just because Joe Rogan says it's something you should do, then they're likely to do it. An example of this is Skoda, the car company. Basically, like my dad used to always say Skodas were disgusting and ugly. Right, my dad's a big fan of cycling, like road cycling. And he always used to like say Skodas were horrible and they were ugly and he didn't like them. And then one day, Skoda ran this ad campaign with Bradley Wiggins, who's like one of the most famous cyclists, like road cyclists in the world. And he's one of my dad's idols. My dad's read his autobiography. He loves him. He always talks about him. And then like, after watching the adverts for a while, I started to notice this change in his behavior. He was like, yeah, you know what? If it's good enough for Bradley, it's good enough for me. You know, I think I like Skodas. He hasn't bought one. But you know, that's sort of how it works. Like, you can take things that you didn't think you'd like and then like them just because someone who you look up to has done the thing. If that makes sense. So do with that what you will. Like, if someone thinks that you have authority or you've established some air of like status, then you can persuade people to do things just by doing those things, if that makes sense. So like, you might believe cognitive biases are, like, you might give them more believability and more credence and more power in your mind, and you might use them more often because I've told you and because you trust me, and it's an influence-based thing, if that makes sense. How this applies to acquisition is a little bit more intricate, but it's kind of like, especially if you're building inbound systems and ads, it works really well. Okay, excessive self-regard tendency. This is basically like where like we regard ourselves highly and higher than we should. And we believe that like our thoughts and our decisions are always right. And it's a really big one. Like, most people have this like real bad, especially in this day and age, the day of the ego. If someone thinks of an idea, they're going to think it's a good idea, basically. Like, we fall in love with our thoughts and our beliefs and our ideas and the decisions that we make. And we always regard them as right because we made them, and we regard ourselves highly, especially if you're narcissistic by nature, which I am. But I've worked on that to bring this back. How this applies to acquisition is like, it's once again, it sort of lines up with the inconsistency avoidance thing, and the incentive thing and everything. But basically, like, you want to empower people to make their own decisions. So it's like, John, like, you're an intelligent like business owner, and I can see like why you booked this call, and I can see like why you reply positively. Like, there's all sorts of things you can do to leverage this. Also, like, if they make a decision, you can be like, that's the best thing you could have done. Sounds like you're really on board. But basically, just understand that like, people will regard themselves and their decision-making and thinking processes as higher than they would the average person. Some people don't, and if they don't, then you work on the opposite side of that, which is a low self-regard. Then you make the decision for them, basically, which I've done a few times. Like, I've closed people by making the decision for them. But you know, like, if someone has like, you're looking for like leverage here, like strings you can put on. So if you're going through acquisition or the sales process or the appointment booking, like, if someone says like, oh, this seems like a good offer, let's book a call, and then they don't reply, you can constantly be like, hey, you were right when you said it's a good offer. When you said that thing, like, it made so much sense to me, and I think you're right. Like, and it just going back to this excessive self-regard thing, but see it in yourself first, and then you'll know how to use it in acquisition to acquire more clients. Over-optimism tendency. So this is kind of like the contrary to doubt avoidance tendency, but it's not really. Like, human beings just have a natural inclination to be very optimistic. And most importantly, like, I don't mean optimistic by everything, I mean by time. So human beings are awful with time, and we think that things aren't going to take as long as we think they're going to take. And when you can build it into your acquisition systems and sort of build like time optimism into your acquisition systems, then you're going to do really well. Deprival super reaction tendency is basically just like, it's number 14. Like, deprival super reaction is when someone has something, but then you take it away from them, and it feels worse. Like the contrast and emotion, like, it's worse to lose something than it is to gain something. So On a scale, it's worse, like the negative emotion you feel is worse when you lose something than the positive emotion you feel when you gain the thing. So it means we're more motivated by loss than gain. So like that's a really important thing to understand, because you can build that into your appointment booking and your sales systems. And like when you really understand the primal super reaction and you actually build that into your daily practice of acquisition, like you can really start to like get into people's heads. So it's kind of like, I mean, you can use incentives and stuff, but like you can build scarcity. It's awesome. Social proof tendency is very straightforward. I won't explain this one in too much detail. Basically, if other people are doing it, so should I. It's just that. It's as simple as that. If other people are doing it and seeing it works, I should do it as well. Contrast misreaction, we've explained that one. Stress influence tendency means that people are more likely to be irrational when they're stressed. You can't really build stress. You don't want to build stress into someone's mind. But, you know, if you pick up on the fact they are stressed, then just know that they're more psychologically vulnerable to ethical persuasion. And I keep saying ethical because like I didn't want to make this video. I've wanted to put it off for so long because you can really do damage with these things. And like there's people out there who want to do damage, and like please don't do that for the sake of, like, we've got enough shit going on as humans. Like don't do shit like that. But you know, stress influence, if someone's under stress, then they're more likely to make a rational decision in your favor. Availability misweighing tendency basically means like, so like there's a saying in sales, the best ability is availability. Like people are more likely to do things if it's available to them. So for example, downstairs, my girlfriend made a banana bread. I'm more likely to eat banana bread because it's available in my house, right? It's as simple as that. Or like, if like, I don't know, like if you want someone to book a call with you, the more available you are in their mind, what that means is like, the more sort of like impressions you're making, the more recently you've contacted them, the more likely they are to decide to work with you, if that makes sense, or book a call at least. So like the reason we do follow-ups is like basically just availability. It's like, hey John, just a reminder that I'm here ready to talk when you are. And it like the more available you are, like cognitively, like the easier it is for them to remember you and pull your existence into their cognition, then the more likely they are to book that call or do that thing that you want them to do. So that's availability misweighing tendency. It's also kind of like making them an offer like quickly and like making the thing available. Like it's a good thing to do. 19, well, it looks like we're just going through them all basically. 19 is use it or lose it, which is also known as use it or lose it tendency is basically like senescence. Senescence is where if you don't do something, then if you don't use it, you're going to lose it. So if I stop doing sales calls, I lose my ability to do sales calls. If I stop doing outreach over time, I lose my ability. It's kind of just like when you stop like trying to maintain a skill or improve a skill, entropy kind of just takes it basically. And like I don't know why this is in here, and I don't understand it deeply enough to really articulate it properly, but it's in there, so it should be important. I need to study it. 20 is drug misinfluence tendency. If you're on drugs, if you're under a chemical influence, then you're more likely to make an irrational decision. Pretty straightforward. Senescence misinfluence tendency is similar to use it or lose it, but it's more about like being old. Basically, as you get older, your cognition gets worse, and that's like, it's a bias at the end of the day, because like your behavior is going to be influenced by that tendency. But a lot of us don't have to worry about that for now. Authority misinfluence tendency. This is pretty damaging. Like it's basically like the best way I can summarize this is when Nazis were put on trial, after World War II, and then like the courts were like, well, why the hell did you do what you did? They said I was following orders, right? Authority is a really powerful thing. Basically, it's just doing things because someone of authority tells you to do them. So like this is why like when it comes to client acquisition, positioning is really important. If people see you as an authority, if they see you as knowledgeable, and if they see you as someone that they can trust to give them information, and like if they see you as higher status than them, then you can't really do that on sales calls because you want to meet them at their own level. But like if they know that you're like good at what you do and you have some authority in the space, then they're way more likely to make a decision to work with you. You can also build this like subtly with email copy, like we've got 10 years of collective experience, or like we've been doing this for so long that like from a marketing perspective I've got grey hair. Like there's all sorts of things you can do there, but you try to like, it should be subtle, it shouldn't be like direct, but subtle authority will give them more confidence to buy from you. Waddle tendency. This is just the human tendency to chat shit, basically. It's to just bang on and walk on about random stuff, and like it's basically, twaddle tendency is when someone starts talking about something they don't understand. So like, you know, like this happens all the time. This twaddle tendency where like someone will, like, you'll be in a group of friends and then someone will say something about like, I don't know, like the government's new tax plan, and then you've got an opinion. But like, why the fuck do you have an opinion? Like, let's be real. Even if you've studied economics for 3 years, like, do you really have like the knowledge and authority and true understanding of the premise of the nature of like an international tax system that operates on many intricacies and levels? Probably not. Like, or if, you know, like I've seen this before where I'm like at a bar or at a pub or something, and then like, you know, people start discussing like politics, and like with Brexit this happened a lot. So like a lot of people were misinformed and they were like, yeah, we should leave the EU and here's why we should stay in the EU. And then it's like, well, how much research have you done? It's like, oh, I haven't done, this is just, this is my opinion. It's like people form their opinions based on all this irrational bullshit. So like twaddle tendency is basically just people's tendency to talk about things that they don't understand. And like, you want to avoid this, but like also, I don't know how this would tie into acquisition necessarily. You can probably use this in the sense that like, if you give the prospect the freedom to explain ideas to you that they clearly don't understand, they're probably going to do it in a way that makes them seem intelligent. You can then leverage that to get them to look cool. But I don't know, one of my favorites, reason respecting tendency. Reason respecting tendency is my favorite because it works really well. Right, now what you're going to do now is give more credence to that. The reason you're going to give more credence to it is because I use the word because. Basically, the whole premise of reason respecting tendency is when you give a reason for something, or when you give someone a reason to do something, they're more likely to do it. There's an awesome study on this, basically, where like I think it was University of California, I think it was, where basically like in this university, they lined up a bunch of people for like to go to a printer to print paper and to print things onto paper. And like there was obviously big queues to use this one printer on this college campus. And like what they found is they asked people, they got like subjects to go and try and butt into the line and be like, hey, can I take your place? And obviously Kantian fairness tendency stops people from doing that. But what they found is that like the first group would sort of try and butt into the line like, hey, can I have your place in the line? And most of the time they'd never let people in. But when people would butt into the line and be like, hi, can I just get ahead of you in the line because I really need to make these copies, right? Like they found that the response rate that was positive, like, yeah, sure, take the line, was like 50-50. Whereas before it was like nothing. I don't know the exact numbers, but the premise of the idea is stuck in my mind with that example. Like, even though they just said, because I really need to make some copies, everyone in that line really needs to make some copies, but it's just by saying because they did it much better. So I do this a lot, like just words like because and so, and with that in mind, like basically just using reasons. So like, you should book a call with me because, or like, you should buy this so that you can. Or like those sorts of things, they go a really long way and they're extremely powerful and it's awesome. And then 25 is what I sort of explained at the start. It's lollapalooza tendency. And this is the tendency to get extreme consequences from confluences of psychological tendencies acting in favor towards a particular outcome. So basically what that means is like when you aggregate like multiple of these cognitive biases, then you create this thing that's greater than the sum of all of its parts through exponential like gain. So that's like, there's more biases than this. You've got anchoring. Anchoring is another cognitive bias. Or anchoring is like if I said like $100 is a lot of money and then said $100,000 and you'd be like, oh my God, that's so much. But you can go on Google, like I do this all the time. You can go on Wikipedia and just search cognitive biases. And there's a Wikipedia page and there's like hundreds of them. But the main ones to look out for are these 25. And I love talking about them. I love explaining them. Like I honestly think I can attribute a lot of my acquisition success to studying these and really integrating them into all of my practices. And now I do it without thinking about it. So yeah, if you use them, you'll make more money and you'll have more fun in business and things will just be better for you in general. So I hope this video was useful. I hope you found it helpful. And if anything, I hope you can now avoid making irrational decisions and, you know, acting like in a way of misjudgment in your own life by understanding these. But I also hope it helps you like have better leverage on your acquisition processes. And like, it's honestly, guys, this is what it's all about. If you want to get good at outreach and acquisition, you should study psychology, microeconomics, and statistics. If you get those three things on lock and you understand the basic premises and deep premises of those three disciplines, then you'll be able to produce systems that produce the result. Everyone's so focused on like, oh, Charlie, what subject line should I use? Like if someone asks me like, Charlie, should I send my loom in the first or second email? I know they're fucked. Because it's like, you don't solve these problems with little nuggets of knowledge. You solve them through paradigmal understanding of disciplines that you can apply to the thing you're working on. And it's through that application that you produce results. It's not by having little nuggets of knowledge and little tricks up your sleeve. It's like, oh, Charlie, what automation software do you use? It doesn't matter. If you understand these things, everything will fall into place. And you won't be able to see that until you've actually done it. But that's how I've done it. So if you found this video helpful, you can subscribe and do all that crap. There is one thing I want to say. If you are an agency owner or a coach or consultant and you're established, and by established, I mean making 6 figures or more, click the first link in the description. We basically can help you get to multi-6 figures. If you're at multi-6 figures, we can help you get to 7 figures. It's really awesome. We've done it for a lot of people. We only work with people that are established, so the community is pretty awesome. If you're a beginner, then just keep watching these videos. You know, if you want to try and get to 6 figures to join us and like go even further, then by all means do it. But yeah, I hope you found this video helpful. Do the comment, like, and subscribe thing. Don't turn the bell notification button on because I don't want to distract you from your work. Just check back every now and then. Yeah, I hope you found this helpful. I'd like you to comment the one that you found the most helpful, please. So go below and I'll reply to you and we can have a discussion. But yeah, thanks for watching. See you in the next one.